That's the best part of my day right there. That's the secret to success in life, kids. Red Bull a day. Alright, let's get this party started. I don't know how well you guys can see, but we're gonna get you guys situated real nice. What's up, everybody? Today's a new day. It's gonna be a great one at that. Got a lot of things coming. If you're just tuning in, thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already following. For those of you that have been following, let's just take a second to acknowledge the new YouTube channel name, Final Boss Garage. I love it. I think it inspires motivation. Not saying my car is the final boss, not saying my car can beat the final boss, but it just reminds me to keep pushing, try to get to that next level. Now, today's going to be a fun day. Today is the first day of the teardown for my heads and cam swap. We're still trying to prepare for LS Fest West 2018 in May, so that is the goal. Today is probably just going to be cylinder head removal, intake manifold, fuel rails, and maybe some front accessories because I'm still missing my harmonic balancer puller that I lent to somebody that never gave it back because they're thieves. Now, let's get to work. Alright, first things first, we're going to start with the driver's side just because everything's still hooked up and this is what you're going to be working with. I have to undo my fuel line. Wonderful. Zero fuel. Alright, so we're just going to bend this out of the way. Alright, so fuel line is off. Next thing's next. We're going to undo our clips into the coil packs. We got one on each side. Alright, and then the coil packs just under your spark plugs. You probably won't have that much room in a 4th gen if you're doing this. These spiky bolts can be kind of a pain in the ass when reaching back there. Now, to get your coil pack off, there is just a few 10mm nuts. Some of them, the ones closest to on top of the coil pack, those are just holding the coil pack to the frame, and then the other ones are holding the whole coil pack frame to your valve covers. Those are the only ones you need to undo. Alright, just like that, the whole coil pack assembly comes off as one with the coil pack harness as well. Alright, next thing's next. I'm going to undo all the header bolts. For the Speed Engineering headers, they came with header bolts. They are 7/16. Alright, so my headers are off. I probably should have pulled my spark plugs first. Spark plugs are 5/8 socket. You don't have to use a special spark plug socket. Any socket works. I'm going to pull mine straight from the top, but I have to pull my valve covers first. We do have to pull them anyways. It's just 4 8mm bolts. And the bolts don't come all the way out. So now, depending on how long they've been on there, they might need help coming off. These gaskets are fairly new, so they shouldn't be too hard, and just pop off just like that. Okay. Anytime you're pulling spark plugs, you want to just inspect each one just to make sure, even if you don't know what you're looking for, you can tell the condition of your motor by looking at them, or each cylinder, But even if you don't know what you're looking for, just look at all of them just to make sure they all look the same. Because if one's noticeably different, then something's different is going on in that particular cylinder. Alright, so I'm working in my garage, and out of nowhere, I see this fucking thing. That's a huge no. I don't like spiders. I mean, they don't creep me out or gross me out or anything, but last thing I want is them in my garage. When I'm going to work on something, I put my hands down in my hole, you know, whatever, headers, whatever, and I get taken out by a giant spider, and before you know it, my life is over because it's got flesh eating something, and my arm falls off and I can no longer wrench. So we're gonna take care of this guy. Yeah, that's the end of you, son. Oh, sweet puss. Look at that. Look at that. Alright, so once your valve covers are pulled, you're going to have your whole rocker arm assembly. You have a rocker arm for each valve. You have your intake valve, and then you have your exhaust valve. And then, so this is a bar, it goes all the way across. All your rocker arms are connected to it, but you do have these 8mm bolts holding in the whole assembly. So I'm just going to undo all 8 of them. I like to start at the ends and then work my way to the center. So I'm just going to undo that real quick. Now, most of the time people are, you know, these are going to be head specific, so you want to pull them off and put them back on the same head you pulled them off of. I'm changing my heads out so it doesn't really matter for me. And then you just grab it by the bar and you just pull straight up, and just like that they all come out. Very fancy. Voila, you have your rocker arms. Alright, so now I'm going to start pulling the intake manifold itself. Luckily my intake's not on there very tight. With your intake manifold, you're probably going to have like some 10mm clamps that you got to undo. You have 2 sensors on your intake that you have to undo as well. The MAP, and then I think this is an intake air temperature sensor. Just be careful, clips on them are very brittle. Okay, and then we already undid the fuel rail, so we can just keep the fuel rail on the intake manifold. Same with the throttle body. You do have coolant tubes that go into your throttle body, so you want to undo those, and then you want to undo your throttle position sensor, and then the idle air control valve sensor, and then you also want to undo your throttle cable. With the throttle cable, you just pull towards, give it more slack, and then it just slides out the bottom. It's pretty easy. You just pull the cable, open the valve all the way up, and then you pull the cable towards it, and then there's a spot where the throttle cable can slide out, and it slides out. Alright, so that's undone. Mine's zip tied on there because it's haggard as fuck. Alright, for these, no special sequence on how to untorque them, how to undo them. Okay, now you do have plugs, electrical clips on the back of your intake manifold, so if you're in a 4th gen and you're pulling this out, I know you can't really see back there, but I've got plenty of room, so I'm going to show you. Okay. So this is what it looks like on the back. You have that clip, and then you have the smaller vacuum port underneath it, and then the bigger one, that's your brake booster. Once your intake manifold is off, you have your valley plate. These are your knock sensors. This knock sensor harness is very fragile, so be careful with that. That's your oil pressure. We don't have to undo this. I'm leaving it. It's a brand new gasket, brand new knock sensors, brand new knock sensor harness. We just did that because we need to get to these bolts. And then you also have to take over your steam vent crossover on the O2 Ls1. It's only on the front, not on the back. The steam vent crossover, it's just two 10mm bolts. Be careful, there are little gaskets on the inside underneath. If you lose them, you can buy more, but it's easier to just pay attention and not lose them. Now, before we pull our cylinder heads, we do have to pull the radiator hoses. We have to let all of the coolant out of there. If you don't know, coolant does run through your cylinder heads, so if we were to pull those off before we emptied it all out, you're going to have water all inside your cylinders and your oil, blah blah blah. It's going to get nasty. So now we're going to go ahead and undo that. Lucky for me, my whole entire coolant setup is brand new and it's nothing but water in there, so I can just undo a hose. I'm gonna let it run down my driveway, and you know, Mother Nature's still gonna be safe. Everything's gonna be great. I just remembered I have a 4th gen radiator, and they come with peacock drains, so you just undo this and all the coolant comes out and you don't have to mess with hoses. So I'm a dumbass, but I remembered before I went through the effort of undoing my hoses. Alright, so we've already removed our rocker arms on each side. We did that. Now you can remove your push rods. Now with these, if you plan on putting your cylinder heads back on and reusing everything, including the push rods, you want to make sure you keep the rocker arms on the same side and the push rods need to go right back where they came from. Now as you pull push rods out, you need to inspect all of them. You want to make sure they're straight. Laying them down and rolling them will help you determine that. You want to inspect the ball ends at the bottom and see if any are flattened out or look like they're wearing unusual. Now I have all new push rods, so I'm not too worried about it, but I am still inspecting it because I'm curious of the condition of this engine, as it's a junkyard engine pretty much. I bought it off Craigslist, off a crashed Camaro, and I have no clue really like what kind of condition it was taken care of. Alright, for your cylinder head, you have two different sets of bolts. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 5 bolts on top. They are 10mm bolts, and then you have 15mm bolts. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the inside, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the outside under the exhaust ports. You are going to need a breaker bar to do this. I have a cheap 22-inch ratcheting breaker bar from Harbor Freight that I just picked up for like $10. So hopefully this is strong enough. I'm going to undo the top 10 first in no order, or the top 10mm, and then I'm going to undo the bottom 10 15mm bolts in a circle. Oh, those aren't bad at all. I'm gonna break them loose and then, oh wow, these are super loose. I'm gonna use my impact. I've already broken them loose. This is just to speed up the process. It's on the lowest setting and I'm not giving it full torque. There is no point in keeping your head bolts as they are not reusable. Do not reuse them. They are stretch bolts, so when you torque them down, the bolt itself does stretch, and if you use it more than once, the integrity of the bolt's already been compromised and you're bound to blow a head gasket. Alright, now for the second set of bolts, the bigger ones, I'm going to undo them in a circle starting from the outside, and then I'm going to go from the bottom up to the outside on that side, down, the next one on the inside, and then just work my way in a circle towards the center. All right. Oh yeah, that is on there. Okay, breaker bar is definitely a requirement. They recommend PB blasting before and letting it soak. But honestly, this ain't so bad. So I did the outside. Now I'm coming back to the next row. Alright, so I broke all the bolts loose. I'm gonna use an impact because this is stupid. Alright. We'll do another torque sequence. Oh shit. Yep, okay. Making sure it's foam loosened. Alright, I'm trying to stare at them as I pull them out. Make sure some LS models, depending on the years, have different size head bolts. So, alright, so these, the top inside ones, the closest outside ones inside under the valve cover, the outside ones are shorter and the inside ones are longer. Okay, now, moment of truth. Make sure nothing's bolted to the back of the head. I don't believe anything was. Nothing. Alright. I'm just going to grab it by the... Alright, it just comes right off just like that. Alright. Hopefully the lighting's not shitty like this. Here's your Ls1 cylinder head. I'm going to turn you guys around actually. Here's your Ls1 cylinder head. It's pretty dirty. Doesn't look like these were rebuilt at all. Anything. These are nasty. It's bone stock 241 heads. But yeah, that's how the magic happens. They're much lighter than original small block Chevy iron heads. Let's take a look down there in the cylinder walls. Okay. So, hopefully light's not terrible. These are your lifter trays. Your lifters go down in there. Here's a little bit of water in the cylinder heads. Nothing too bad. I'm gonna take a microfiber and soak those up real quick. Alright, so now that the cylinder heads are off, we can get to our lifters. These lifter trays are held in by there's only 2 on each cylinder head. They are held in by another 8mm bolt. That might be a 10 actually. Okay. So after the bolt top, these literally just slide up and straight out. I've replacing mine with LS2 ones. I don't know why, but the LS2 trays seem to be a recommended upgrade. I'll compare those here in a second. I'm just gonna, let's see, pull them out with a magnet. With these, you want to inspect them as well. You have this roller on the bottom, so you want to inspect it for any uneven wear, anything that looks like, you know, it's not getting lubrication, or if it's like worn flat, something that show that these might be broken. This one looks good. We are putting all brand new LS7 lifters in with the new cam and everything, so these are all getting tossed. A magnet will make it much easier. This one looks good as well. And again, if you're reusing everything, push rod goes to each lifter. You want to keep them together. This one looks like it's got a small scratch on it, but nothing that's going to catch the nail or anything, so not too bad. This one looks good. To pull the driver's side cylinder head, we have to pull the power steering pump, pull the pulley. Now we're going to pull the pump. The pump's held on to this bracket with 2 bolts, so we're going to take that off real quick. Don't forget, in the back of your passenger head, you do have a engine ground. I forgot about it. Let's give her a tug. Hope this gave you an insight of what it takes to pull an LS1 cylinder head. Honestly, guys, the hardest part about doing something like this on your own project car is just having the balls to tear into your car. The fear for me was always the hardest part. The actual process of it is Legos. Honestly, there's so much information out there between LS1 Tech, you know, YouTube. You could literally Google image search torque sequences, and you know, there's just a world of information out there to where you can do anything yourself. You just got to get over your fear. You know, go out there. I've got basic tools, so you don't even need a lot of stuff. You just go out there and just work on your car. That will be the end of today's video. I just want to thank everybody for staying along, watching. If you got to the end of this, that's great. I really appreciate it. Yeah, hope you guys learned something. You know, if not, hope you're entertained. Yeah, I will have another video posted next Monday as well. So every Monday from now on, you will get videos and updates. Thank you. Stay tuned. Subscribe, comment, like, share the love.